Today we are solving some 15Q problems. In this one we have a white group and the goal is to find a way to cut white off to capture some white stones. Pause the video and try to find the right move for white. The key to notice here is that there are two virtual connections that white has. White has the connection from these two stones down to the C4 stone, which looks safe on its own. C3 and D3 are MIAI. If black plays one, white will play the other and be connected. There's also the virtual connection between C4 and D5. If black plays D4, white can play C5 and vice versa. So on their own, they are connected. But taken together, black can play the D4 point, which is actually threatening both cuts at once, both threatening to cut on C3 and on C5. White can Atari once on D3, but it doesn't really help. So no matter what white does here, there will be one cut left and we will get to kill some white stones. This is also the only first move that works. Anything else, for instance here, white will connect with a bamboo joint. If we push here, now white is solidly connected. So it's only this move that is working to cut white. Okay, we have a surrounded black group in the corner. Try to find the move to save this black group. So let's consider some options. If we play C2, taking a liberty from the white stones, white will be able to Atari and then connect on B1, making an eye in the corner. We will not be able to play the D1 Atari because that would be self-Atari on the group. If we connect solidly on D2, we have a potential threat here to worry about, which is white cutting here, so it might make sense to connect here. But then white could play C1 and we're in a similar situation. We can play C2, white connects, yeah, no good. So we notice that C1 is a vital point for white in those variation and we can play there ourselves. It may look like we're not making a real eye because white can play C2, D2 and then there's a false eye shape on D1, but white is not able to Atari on B1. And if white plays B1 immediately, we just play the C2 Atari. So this will live outright and kill the white stones. White plays from the outside, threatening F1, but we just take the stones in the corner. Let's just quickly put some of the failure variations on the board. So if this one, we have Atari and connect, we cannot play the D1 Atari, so now all the black stones are dead. And this connection, very similar, white will not play this, which would let us live again, but instead play this point, and now there's no way to live for black. Okay, we have a surrounded black group. We should find a way to make two eyes with this black group. The first thing to consider is G2, maximizing the eye space. If we can live with this, we would prefer to play some internal move because then this would live with as many points as possible. So we look here first, but then we notice that white could play either D1 or E1. And since these stones are short on liberties, we would be in trouble. So for instance here, E1, we would not be able to play D1 because that would be self-Atari on these stones. So instead we need to play inside, and since we have a 4 in a row, we could consider either E1 or D1, but E1 white can just play G2 and we only have one eye. So D1 is the better point here. Now we will get one eye on D2 and one eye on E1. And we are alive with 2 points. In this shape, white can use either this Atari and here, or this one to reduce this to one eye. In general, or I should say often this one is better. This one might be better if it's about quickly reducing the liberties of the stone, so the move you play needs to be Atari. Maybe that one would be better, but in general, if there was another eye black could make elsewhere, E1 would be better because it's threatening to play the D2 snapback, and when black responds, white reduced to one eye in center compared to this one. So in this problem, both just kills, but in general, it's good to know about this E1 move to reduce eyes. Okay, we have a black surrounded group here. There are not many moves to consider for the first move, but you should try to read it out all the way to the end and know what is the status of this corner. Is it alive? Is it a ko? Is it seki? try to be sure of the stats of the group before checking the solution. So, of course, we need to capture on the first move. That's the only thing to do. Or we should also consider what happens if we play elsewhere. Maybe black is already alive, but we're kind of hinted off here, it being a problem that we need to play something. But we should also take a look later what happens if we play elsewhere. But let's say now we capture. White will be able to play inside on the B1 point. Then we can play A1. White will capture. We have a co-shape, but we can actually play C1 to squeeze the two white stones and make two eyes. And at the end there, black has two liberties. That means that variation is only working if we have these two liberties on the outside. So if we play elsewhere, white can take any one of the E1 or A5 liberties, and that variation will no longer work to live, and it will be a ko instead. So let's first play out the correct variation. Play A3 here. The only way to try to make two eyes is A1, and now we don't need to find a ko threat and fight this ko. Instead we just play C1, and on the next move we can capture on A1. But if we had played elsewhere and allowed white to take one liberty, now this would be a ko. Because we're not able to play C1, this would be self-Atari. So instead at this point we would have to find a ko threat, some move that white needs to respond to elsewhere on the board. Oh, sorry, not at... yeah, at this time. And then we could take back and white would make a threat, and it would not be certain we could make this group live. So this shape here is alive, but only as long as black has two liberties on the outside. Okay, this will be our final problem. We have a surrounded black group. We should find a way to live. And again, try to be sure before playing out the solution if it's alive or ko or seki or something else. So if we play the C3 Atari, making one eye on D3, then that's the only eye we get. There's no way to capture these three stones, so we will just die. So we need to start with the C1 throw-in, and it may look like it's a ko after that, so white will capture the one stone. And now we can't take back, so you may stop your reading here and say, okay, it's a ko, but we have a better move again. We can just play the C3 Atari, and since white cannot save these stones, we will be alive. So at this point, again, it would be a bit different if we assume white had another stone on the outside. Let's just assume this is on the board or something like that. Then we could still live in ko by playing here. We could play this. We can't play C3 Atari, but we could make a ko threat elsewhere on the board, assuming we have one. Maybe this one will be a ko threat now, and then take back. So again, the outside liberty is important to ensure that this is not only a ko, but actually unconditionally alive. Hope you like these problems. See you in the next video.